The general election 13th is just 2 weeks away, and there has been a never-seen-before jump in the number of new voters. There are 2.9 million new voters, making up 22% of Malaysians who are going to be casting their votes. Now, we can only assume that the majority of these new voters are young adults who are more aware and more educated about our political climate. So here with us today for our GE13 Showdown, we have Jeremy and Sham, our young adults, to share with us what they want when it comes to casting their votes on the 5th of May. So, Jeremy, I understand that this is your first time voting.
Yes, it is.
And you are 29 this year, which means that you were eligible before in 2008. Yes. So,
election.
what made you decide that this time you're going to step in and vote?
I do believe that I think what has happened is I've grown a little older, and also there's also been a greater amount of information regarding the political scenario, the country's situation, so to speak, and then you think to yourself, you know what, I have this right, I best utilize it. If not, then there's no point in me complaining about why didn't it go this way, you know?
Speaking of complaints, I mean, Sham, you write for Rage, right? So when it comes to complaints, do you hear a lot of your friends complaining about the country and what they don't like about the country?
Yes, of course, everybody complains, and the funny part is most of them, they're not even registered voters. that is the saddest part. I mean, they are not exercising their rights, and yet they're complaining. So for registered voters like myself, we're disappointed, and we're also annoyed because they're not doing anything about it, and yet they're complaining. So that's the biggest question: why complain when you're not even like taking charge of how the country should be run?
Do you hear this saying, "Oh, you know, it's only one vote; it won't change anything. Even if I vote, it won't change anything"? Do your friends say that?
All of them do. It's like, for example, let's say you see a child being abused and there's like 5 of them and none of them speaks up. Are you going to say, oh, one voice is not going to matter? It's the same thing as the country. You can't just say that one voice is not going to matter, because one voice will become 2 voices, then it'll become 3 voices, and then it'll eventually just become the whole nation fighting for what they believe is right.
Okay. And you know, now young adults, you know, information technology, we have access to the internet, we read so much more. You say that you're now more informed, hence that's why you want to exercise your right to vote, right? Yeah. Do you think that what we know about the political situation in Malaysia is informed knowledge?
I think at the end of the day, it's information to begin with. Information on its very own has no value, whether it's right or wrong. You make that decision, whether it's with your newspapers, your TV, or your radio. What happens is it all comes through a certain kind of filter. If we take an example for research, for example, people can say, oh, violence in video games, blah, blah, blah. For every article that says, you know, video games cause violence in young adults, and there will be an article saying otherwise. Same with anything to do with the political situation or anything like that, where you say, this guy's like that, there's another article or another video or another piece of writing that says, no, he's not. So at the end of the day, it's up to you to make the decision, but it is up to you to know to begin with.
Now with the political parties, right, there are so many things that are being said and a lot of promises being made. Are you guys happy with the promises being made? Do you believe in them?
Well, first of all, I'm not happy. I'll only be happy with the promises made once they're fulfilled. There's no... right?
It has to be fulfilled first, right?
Yeah. Only then I can say I'm truly happy, because anybody can promise anything. They can promise to give us a piece of the moon or anything. But the rakyat, the people will only be happy once they see the result of their promise. So right now, I'm just looking forward to seeing how the winning party, whoever is going to govern the country, whether they're going to fulfill the promise. So the next general election, I know that we are not even done with this general election, because the next general election, then we would know whether we made the right decision for this general election.
Yeah, you only know after the horse is bolted to see. Okay, this is very interesting, because we seem to know what we want, you know, out of the general election. But the real question is, do we really know what we desire? Because sometimes when you get what you want, there are other things that comes into play that you don't realize that, hey, maybe this is not what I want as well. So we'll find out from Jeremy and Sham about what the aspirations are for this country and whether their friends have aspirations of their own for Malaysia. When we return, our GE13 Showdown. I am Xandria Ooi, and this is the GE13 Showdown. And Sham and Jeremy are brave enough to tell us what the aspirations are for this country. Now, on social media, everybody is saying what they want, for this coming election on the 5th of May. What do you guys want when you cast your vote?
Do you have any particular demands?
Just like every other nation, I just want the country to be a safe place for us to all live.
You don't feel safe right now in the country?
Honestly, I don't feel safe even walking to the grocery store. I mean, it was something I was brave enough to do 10 years ago. But now, I have to always to be fair, I mean, there's a few snatch theft cases around my housing area. I can't even walk out to the grocery store to buy anything, so I don't feel safe. I mean, I can't walk out at night.
What do you think has changed, though, between 10 years ago and now when it comes to safety in the country?
Maybe I think we've taken things for granted. I think what has happened is we have been telling ourselves for the longest time, oh, we're a safe country, we're safe, we're peaceful, you don't have anything to worry about. And after it, what happened was it came to a certain point where it was just us telling ourselves that, and we believed it, that we forgot to housekeep. We forgot to do the housekeeping involved to making sure that none of these things came up, and it's biting us, I think.
So when you're saying that we forgot, are you talking about the citizens forgetting or the government forgetting?
I'm thinking it goes both ways, right? I mean, on one end, if there was a problem and it went away for a while, we think, oh, we're okay now. And like normal, everybody will be like, okay, yeah, it's gone, let's leave it. But then at the same time, you have to have certain people in charge involved in making sure that, okay, there is no threat, there is no problem, so okay, but we have to keep monitoring. And I think what has happened is there has been a lax in that department. And that's what's happening, the snatch thefts, the lack of safety. I mean, when you have local celebrities having their car windows smashed in what is supposedly an upmarket part of town, you're in trouble. When you've got people in who are supposed to be safeguarding us, I think the head of the, I don't know, one of the police departments or whatever, recently got a snatch level. When that happens to you, what are we saying? You can tell us that you are safe. You can say all these kinds of things, but we're not going to believe it because it doesn't count for anything. Because look at what just happened.
So what is the ideal situation for you when it comes to safety in Malaysia?
For me, it's just to be able to walk out the door and not feel that I'm going to get robbed or mugged or.
So you feel that it's a responsibility first and foremost of the government, the governing party, and then the citizen?
I think it's both ways. I think what happens is, as a citizen, as a human being, as a person living in any part of town, you have to be smart about things. You don't be stupid and get yourself into trouble. But then there is a minimum level of acceptability that needs to happen.
So safety is number one at the top of your list. If you're talking about manifestos, your wish list, for what you hope happens after GE13, this will be at the very top?
I think it's the basic thing. I think what happens is you can talk to us about how much money you're going to be pumping into youth events, or you're going to talk to us about how much money you're going to improve this particular sector. I think it doesn't count for anything if you don't meet the basic need, which is safety. In your hierarchy of needs, your most basic one is food, shelter, and all that kind of stuff. Now, in a country, in a nation, your basic one is safety, because who cares how much money you're going to put into sports development? It does not matter.
If you're not there to utilize it because you're not safe,
right? I'm not gonna play football at your nice $200 million football stadium.
Well, you don't feel safe going to the football stadium.
Exactly.
But anyway, I think it's a chain reaction. Everything is linked to one another. It's like when you don't focus on education, kids are not getting good in education, and then they end up not getting jobs. And then
speaking of chain reactions and education, we'll come back and we can go more into that. It sounds like that's also on the list of aspirations for Malaysia, especially when it comes to our general election on the 5th of May. When we come back, GE Showdown. back to the GE13 Showdown. There is an unprecedented jump in the number of new voters, and we can only assume that the number of new voters, the majority of them are young adults who are feeling more informed, especially with social media, and they want to exercise their right to vote. Now, we were just saying that safety is at the top of the list, and you were saying that education is something that you feel very strongly about as well?
Yes, I think education is the basis for everything. Back in the days, this is what my parents used to tell me, everybody had to get a job for them to survive. But now, because they don't get good education, they end up not having jobs because everything is like based on papers.
But what do you mean by good education? I mean, all the kids I know go to school.
Right. It's weird because, like, even for example, I mean, the kids nowadays are so confused over what they're studying. I mean, 1 year they're studying in English, and 1 year they're studying science and maths in Bahasa Malaysia, and the kids themselves. The kids themselves are not sure what's exactly happening in school, and for them to actually grasp whatever they're studying and to apply it later on in life is actually quite difficult for them.
How is this directly relevant to you as a working adult where you've left school so long ago?
How is that? Because at the end of the day, these kids eventually become adults, and then they'll come and work with me. Right?
So for selfish reasons, you're thinking, I don't want to train these people who are not properly educated.
Yeah, and some of the... Okay, I shouldn't be naming... I mean, like, I love all of our interns. They're all so smart. Some of the people I've met, and they have this qualification, they have degrees and everything, but their English is so bad. It's terrible. They can't even carry a conversation in basic English, and they actually have a degree from a university, a local university.
So if you were to make a wish list, okay, after safety and this education, what would you say that you want when it comes to education in Malaysia, in a sentence?
Okay, can I just
Let's not be idiots. Can I say that?
What, do you think we're idiotic?
No, I don't think what happens is, like, it's come to a point where it feels like a numbers game. You know what I mean? Where you go to school and you're supposed to get education, you're supposed to learn things, right? Now, learning and getting results are two very different things.
Okay.
There's a lot of focus on 5 A's, 12 A's, 13 A's, 15 A's, 16 A's, and sure that helps in your scholarship and all that, but how much do you actually learn? To say you've got, 8 A's in your SPM, for example, 8 out of 10 is supposed to be fantastic, but you come out and work and you can't hold a proper conversation in English. Then it just effectively shows that there's a bit of a flaw in the system that way.
So this is really interesting because what I'm hearing is, a lot of things that has nothing to do with money, nothing to do with business, nothing to do even with the infrastructure of how our roads are or public transportation, and that to you is not as important as this main two things, safety and education.
Basic needs, once again.
Right.
We can't go to your we can't go to your businesses or the equality and how businesses are started up or your infrastructure on the road. You can't do any of that without the fundamentals, your building blocks for your nation, your general
the
safety.
young people who are actually supposed to do the infrastructure and whatnot, if they are not getting the good education, the education that they need, how are they going to help us build the building? I'm not going to step into the building, it's going to collapse anytime.
That makes perfect sense. Okay, yeah. I'm really curious. Now, this is what you both think, right? Do you think your friends feel the same?
I think they don't know they feel the same. I think what
does that mean?
I think what happens is there's, like, if you follow like your Facebook feeds or your Twitter feeds, I think there's a lot of anger brewing in the sense that there is a lot of dissatisfaction in the levels of safety and how they feel helpless. A crime happens and they think they're supposed to be able to go to some people for help, and they can't.
Yes.
And they feel like they're not being very helpful. I'm the victim here, but why is it so hard to get what I think is my basic right as a fundamental citizen? And that's what's happening. And they don't realize that it's all tied into all these other factors that we just spoken about very briefly. But that dissatisfaction is that they don't know how to change it, they don't know why they want to change it, they just know that this is their situation.
Do you guys think that as a citizen of Malaysia, we have a right to demand for what we want?
I think if you put a government into power, you have a right to demand anything that you want. You put them there.
All right, to sum it all up, right, when you cast your vote on the 5th of May, what is the one thing that will be on your mind?
That I'm making the right choice and it will make a difference. And
I'm just having a say in what I want for the country, and hopefully it takes me somewhere.
Regardless of where things go and how it turns out, you'll still be happy that you cast your vote.
Yeah, definitely, for sure.
Fantastic. Okay, we're all counting down to the 5th of May, where we'll find out where our country is heading for the next 5 years. Exciting stuff indeed. And good luck, everybody.
Yes.